Charlotte Chucknorris is behind the handle Charlotte Chuck1 on Twitter, a proponent of an old-fashioned idea they call freedom. She is not only a vocal advocate online against the new normal of culture and governance instituted following the COVID-19 pandemic, but has also voted with her feet and emigrated from the UK to Texas. You can find her account in the description. Okay, so Charlotte, let's start with a really important question. Should attractive people be exempt from wearing face masks?
Oh, well, obviously, I mean, well, I think everyone should be excluded from wearing face masks unless they want to, whether they're attractive or not. It's a matter of perspective anyway, but I don't think governments should be telling people that they have to put things over their face. So I guess that's how I feel about that.
It's weird because I think the mask, and you see this with the media, I think there was like a Time magazine cover with just the mask on it, you know, this sort of stuff. It's taken its own sort of symbology. And I'm not sure, I mean, obviously it's got this sort of almost religious connotation with people who are drawing moral positivity from this, but what does the mask mean to you? Like, because for me, I from the start I had quite an emotional reaction. I've obviously thought about it more since then, but what does it kind of represent to you?
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. To me, it's just it seems completely unnatural for a human being to hide their face. Historically, that's I don't know. It's hard to unpack in the context that it's in now, because like you say, some people, I think they've been brainwashed into believing that wearing that on their face is the right thing. So that adds a whole layer of complexity to it. But to me, yeah, I mean, I'm aware that it symbolizes different things to different people. But to me, it's just, I'll never get used to it. I can't deal with it. Like I can't wear one myself, haven't. And I find it really disheartening when I go places and I do see people with their faces covered up. And to me, I guess it symbolizes, I think sometimes it depends on what mood I'm in. Sometimes it makes me really angry because I think, like people wearing these are just prolonging I guess it also depends on what your viewpoint is on the whole thing, but I'm only speaking for myself. But it's a symbol of compliance, you know, that they're willing to go along with these rules and wear that on their face. And yeah, so sometimes it symbolizes compliance to me. And it just, my overall feeling is it just seems, it's not human. It's not right for people to keep, you know, it conceals a lot of natural human expression and things like that. So I really can't get past that. I mean, yeah, there's so much to it. So to me, it just symbolizes just losing the battle, I guess. It's like, oh, the more people you see wearing them, the more it feels like it's never going to end. But then those people have a completely different perspective, and yeah, it's a real mess. I hate them.
Yeah. It's weird because, you know, trying to explain where we are now to someone 2 years ago is, I think you were like completely mental. And it's one of those things that's really, I think my views of loads of things politically and socially have changed a lot in the last 2 years because of this. Because I think I used to have a lot more faith in people maybe not being so malleable. It's true. I remember when I was younger, you know, there's a big hullabaloo about, you know, teenagers going into shops wearing hoodies. Now everyone's going in wearing like ski masks and stuff, and that's completely acceptable, if not encouraged, you know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, I when this first kicked off, I mean, yeah, same as you, 2 years ago, I didn't care about politics, didn't care about government, what they were up to. That was just nothing to do with me. I was just enjoying my life, you know, didn't really care. And when this happened, I mean, I thought conspiracy theorists were, you know, funny people, you know, like to listen to what they have to say, but didn't really buy into a lot of it or think about it very much. And then so when this kicked off, I bought it hook, line, and sinker for a few weeks. I mean, it was very alarming because I just remember, you know, I fell for it. I feel like such a sucker. Like I was seeing the videos from China. I mean, yeah, I'm only speaking for myself, so I can only say my own experience. But yeah, I saw these people falling over in China, collapsing in the street, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty serious. And you know, I started checking online. I was like, are there still flights coming from China to England, where I still was at the time? And I was like, yeah, there's still. That's weird. But you know, it's you at that point. I still trusted the government. I wasn't that, you know, they're the government, their job is to look after us, you know, that's just kind of my simple way of thinking. So you know, when they from there, it was a week or two, then the next thing you know, we're all at work and Boris is, you know, we're all gathered around the TV, Boris is making this announcement and everyone's got a, it was ominous. I was, you know, I wouldn't say I was terrified, but I was like, this shit's about to get real. Like this is very bad for them to be doing this, you know, stopping everything. And you know, and I think, I mean, I like to say things like I speak for everyone, but I don't. But I think most of people I know were like, yeah, this is bad, let's lock down for 2 weeks and incubate. And like, you know, we were, you know, I was checking the news every day, cases in my, oh my goodness, cases in my area. And you know, I really believed it. And so it's just, I can't even remember where we started now, what you were talking about before, but yeah, I guess I can see it because I grew from being completely someone who thought this was a real threat. And you know, I'm aware that a lot of people still do, but you know, I've come to a different conclusion, that I think a lot of this is fabricated. There's another agenda behind it. So yeah, it's taken me, I started, you know, believing it all. And I guess, you know, I think we were talking about how, yeah, like how you trust the government and you think, you know, they're telling you got to do these things, so you're willing to cooperate for a time and until you start digging a bit deeper.
And it sounds like a lot of your, I think anger is the right word, probably comes from, you know, you feel like you were duped a little bit. Like, yes. It feels like, you know, that 2 weeks you were really malleable, getting into it, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely in the same boat. I've always, I mean, like you said, you weren't really like bothered about politics and stuff before. I've had a weird political journey, but at that time I was definitely very freedom minded first, like freedom first. But I was like thinking, well, we don't know what this is, so I think it's, you know, fair enough for, you know, 2 weeks of maybe a little bit of authoritarianism. And then I was, like you said, I was comparing what was going on in China with what was going on back home. Again, I definitely fell for the hospital videos, all that sort of stuff. But now looking back on that, they don't seem completely like legitimate, or, you know, those don't even look like symptoms of what we understand to be COVID. But regardless, at that point, I was looking at flights and this sort of thing, right? We were all stuck at home or whatever. And I didn't mind. It was a novelty for me. I really enjoyed it. But comparing like the way the Western governments handled it with how an authoritarian state like China was handling, where they were actually closed, and we had that weird kind of soft closure where, you know, all the airports were still open and people were coming and going. And it almost feels like we swapped around now. Like,
yes,
everyone's worrying about like if they're going to be able to get back to their home country, or, you know, travel rules are constantly changing. And it's strange how things have changed, and things did change in a very short period of time, but how things have just ramped up. I mean, going back to the masks, you know, it started out as, people are like, oh, I'll wear them if there's lots of people around. Then it became, I'll always wear them indoors. And then it became, you know, we're just going to wear them out in the open there, even though we know that's like pretty much pointless. But
yeah, I never, I don't like stuff on my face anyway. So I think by the time they introduced masks in England, I was already, it only took me a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And then I think they introduced the masks after that. So I've never worn a mask. Like, I just, you know, I can't do it. And by that time, by the time I figured it out, I'd already realized that. I think the thing you were talking about is that you seem to be, in a way, you say that you would tolerate the sort of authoritarianism, but I really took for granted. I never realized that, I was taking freedom for granted per se. I just, until it started being slowly taken away. And that's what, that's when it becomes obvious that it's about something more than.
Yeah. This is the thing. I was worried as well. And again, I was duped into, even though I was, definitely of that mindset, being like, oh, it'll only be 2 weeks. I was completely flawed. I mean, but it does make you kind of wonder how much was known and by who from the start.
I just can't believe.
Really gets me, I think.
Like now, I mean, it's just checking the news today, Boris. It's just starting over. It's like, but I'm so thankful that I'm seeing a lot more people. It is literally like, Boris has made this announcement, and they're trying all the same scary verbiage, whatever. And I think a lot more people are like, you know what, like, we're not doing it anymore. Like, this has been going on long enough. And, I don't know when is it going to stop? When is enough going to be enough? Like, and I mean, there's so much to talk about. I don't even know where to, whether you want to get into vaccinations and all that. It's just a whole, I mean, we've mostly been talking about masks, which are, to me, sort of a throwaway thing at this point. I think we're in much deeper water than, but I don't know if that's,
right.
You've got your audience. I don't know if you really want me to get into what I really think about all this, but yeah, there's a lot to think about. I'll put it that way. So
I've got plenty of directions we can go, but I think your story is obviously really interesting because, I mean, at least this is what you've said publicly, is that's your reason for moving.
Definitely.
Kind of, escape this sort of things and trying to drag as many of your family members as you can in the same direction. So, like, is that the only option for us? At least, I mean, I'm speaking as like someone who's in, well, not a European country anymore, but what I mean? Like, one of the countries that seems to be going one of the Western countries that seems to be going in a strange direction with this. Is that our only option? Or is that like a cowardly thing to do, to leave? Do we have to, like,
well, this is it. It's like, I do feel like I cheated. I had a way out and I took it, but I also, it's like, I'm never just sitting here like, woohoo, I made it, I escaped, because I left a lot of people I cared about behind. It was a really, I think, I have, like, I guess it'd be akin to like survivor's guilt or something. It's like, to put a spin on the government's little thing, we're not all safe until everyone's safe. Well, that's kind of how I feel. It's like, yeah, maybe I'm enjoying more freedom here for how long, who knows? But it's like, not everyone that I care about is free. I'm still on Twitter all the time. I still have friends in England. They're really struggling. And so no, I don't, but I do think, because I follow the news of what's happening in England. It's I lived there for 20 years. That's where I had the best years of my life. And it's really hard to see what's happening. And I do, what is the answer? How can we change the direction that it's going? And, and I think, how would I be coping if I didn't have this option? And I was really struggling. I really was. And I don't know whether it's because I knew I had a choice, like I could move back to Texas where I'm from, or, maybe if I hadn't have had that option, I would have just, well, obviously I would have just stuck it out. But I made a lot of good friends, went to a lot of protests and did everything I could. And I did feel like a total traitor. I felt guilty about, wanting to come home because I just had enough. And, so I do think it maybe is the coward's way out. I tell myself that a lot, like I should have stayed and fought or whatever. But on the other hand, it's like, my mom's here. my whole family's here, and with all these travel restrictions and stuff like that, I just thought, basically I will never get vaccinated. And I felt like it was moving in the direction of, if you want to get on a plane, you're going to have to be vaccinated. Yeah. So I just thought, before that happens, I'm going to get back over. So, I don't have to choose it.
Unless you want to pay like a really high economic and time cost for doing that, basically. It's very strange, because I've had so many conversations with really smart people who are still pretty adamant that no one's being forced to be vaccinated. And I think for a lot of these people, and again, we'll get back to this, because I think the biggest issue is kind of, middle-class people who might be able to afford that kind of like cost, time, and money, in terms of having to be stuck in one place. But I think, for all intents and purposes, for a lot of people, it's not really like a possible option at this point. If you want to do anything, right? If you want to do anything of like meaningful value, like if the option is to be completely locked down in your home, or be able to go anywhere, they're saying, oh, well, you don't have to go to a restaurant. But it's like, I can't even get into that mindset. I don't know. I just feel like it doesn't even matter what this thing is in terms of the disease or the vaccine. I feel like there's like a moral part of me that says there's no sort of medical treatment that should even be tacitly forced on people.
Well, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think anyone, they're never going to force people, are they? Because that's probably illegal. Not that our whole justice system isn't corrupt, but I mean, I think they're using coercion. They're saying, well, no, it's your choice. You don't have to take it, but if you want to get on with life, you're going to need, but this is, I think some people stop there and they're like, that's it. That's my choice. But there are other choices. As like, when are we going to stand up for our right to bodily autonomy? I think we have to accept that they're not going to stop. They're not just going to wake up one day and go, okay, guys, we're all done now. We're wrapping this up, and everyone just go about it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And, so by accepting and putting yourself in that box of like, I can't live life until I do what they say, you're just crawling in their box for them. At some point, people are going to have to, say no, like, we're not, and you probably, life as we know it is over for a time, probably for a while. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like we're at some kind of fork in the road, and we're either gonna end up, the majority of people just giving in and saying, well, I wanted to go to restaurants, I wanted to be able to, or we're gonna go, what, like we're not going to do this anymore. They can't, like you said, they can't tell us what we have to put in our body. And if it means I have to sacrifice, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. It's hard to, first you have to accept that life as you know it is over. And even if you comply, it's like, now they're on about boosters and you have to do, it's never going to end. And I mean, yeah. So I think at some point it's either just gonna, I mean, it's hard. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that just going along with them and having as many jabs as they want you to have in order to regain your freedom, which wasn't theirs to take anyway. It's like the only way we're eventually going to get control of things again, as I don't know if that's the right word, but just try, to win, I guess, to not let them take over life as we know it, is to stop complying, to stop going along with this. But a lot of people still believe that, that there's a problem, and that to get vaccinated is the right thing. And it's like, maybe, it's just, yeah. that's, I can't speak for anyone else. I just got to keep saying that, but I have my own viewpoints. But it's like, I just think we can't keep going along with it, or it's never going to stop. They're already never going to stop. So the more we, you know, like you said, we're malleable to whatever they, you know, this is what you've got to do to have this and da da da. We just need enough people to realize, you know, and well, I wish I'm talking like I'm going to come to some brilliant conclusion, but I don't know what the answer is. It's really like, I have no idea, but something, you know, I don't think cooperating is getting us anywhere, basically.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the big mistake I made, because I'm going to be honest with you now, and this is like,
it's okay.
Contention is I did get vaccinated in the end.
Yeah.
It took I was really freaking late. You know, it was worst morning of my life. Seriously, like, it was such a bizarre experience, because I was just so shaken up about it, because it's, for me, I'm not really skeptical of like the technology and the vaccine. I'm a young guy. I was pretty okay with, like, you know, with this being like a good thing. If it stops, you know, my grandparents from getting it or something like that.
Do you believe that though?
I don't know anymore, because apparently it doesn't stop transmission in the end. So again.
This is what I mean. It's like
another point where I've been duped again. But it was just a weird day, that, because it was, you know, I was talking to the girl at the center, and she was like, I don't know, she was like, oh, it's your second time, right? She's filling out a form or something like that. And I was like, no, it's my first. And she just immediately gave me evils, because she knew how late I was. And I was like, oh, I'm making a horrible decision here. But this is the thing, you know, because I put it off for a long time, again, not because I was skeptical about this being a danger to certain groups of people. Maybe we can get back to that. That'd be an interesting topic as well. But also because I didn't want to get it for a long time, because I was like, what are they going to use this to justify later on, and on people who don't do it? And that's still weighing on my conscience, because I'm at this point still complicit in that.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, why, if you don't mind my asking, like, why did you do it? Like, what was the thing that tipped you over the edge and you were like,
yeah, this is another thing we really have to come back to, because I was willing to kind of give up a lot of stuff, but the big thing for me was my family, basically. You don't always see eye to eye with your family, but you have to respect these people. And then it was also like, well, I haven't seen my grandparents for a year, and I really want to see them in person, that sort of thing. And it would make them comfortable, actually, you know, being normal around me, as opposed to talking to me through the window or whatever. So that was the big thing. So I have no idea where I'm going from this point on, because it seems like it's going in the direction I didn't want it to go.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's okay. Like, we don't even have to like publish this if you don't want to.
I honestly don't care.
Yeah, this is what I mean. It's a whole can of worms, and it's like, I'm not judging anybody, because everyone's got to do what's right for them, and that is the whole point of freedom. And it's just really infuriating that this is even a thing, that people are being manipulated to do something that there's so much like emotional blackmail, there's so much misinformation, so people might be getting the vaccine for the wrong reason, or for a reason that, you know, the government keep moving the goalposts anyway, so people make decisions based on, because they're still trusting the government and believing that, you know, that they're there to help us, and that this is you know, I don't know, but I mean, that it's literally divided people so much that, you know, I mean, I could sit here and give you, I've done my research. I have, you know, I know why I don't want it, but it's like, I've just had that conversation with too many people too many times, and other people, you know, they've got their own reasons and they've done their own research, and people believe different, you know, so, but I just wish that, like, I wish we could just go back to like 2 years ago and just live life without, you know, I mean, God, it is a very thorny topic. Yeah. And there's lots to it.
In a way, this is so much bigger than anything we could talk about. And that's one of the things I've really struggled with is, you know, you can't click your fingers and go back to where things were. So how do you still carry on in the right way or find meaning in your life when things are out of your control?
Well, I think there have been sort of some silver linings to this whole thing, whatever it is. You know, I think this is what I mean. With your reasons that you've given, you know, for you felt like it was something good to do for your family or whatever. But if you're really thinking about your freedom, your bodily autonomy, your right to just see who you want or have who you want in your house or whatever, and you know, it's like, where was I going with that? It's like oh yeah, because they've manipulated things so much, and it's been in the works for a long time. That, I mean, what does it take to make people to live a fulfilling life? What is that? Does that mean going to restaurants, going to shows, going to pubs? You know, what is that? So first of all, they've seduced us all into having these very free and easy, like, this is what's important. These things, the media, the adverts, everything is like, this is how your life should be. Out with friends, doing this, that, and the other, and, you know, perfect life. But it becomes unfathomable then to think, you know, what would I do if I couldn't go to the cinema, or I couldn't go to the show, or I couldn't go to the pub or whatever? Because people have forgotten that you can have pleasure from just like going for a walk out in nature, or reading, or, you know, things that you don't, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe it's taught me, I mean, I've always kind of been this way anyway, which probably helped me, but it's like, I think for people who are very social and stuff like that, not very comfortable being on their own, this must have been a total nightmare. But it's like, maybe, you know, it shows, maybe it's an opportunity for people to realize, I can actually, if I have to choose between putting something in my body that I don't want to, or going to all these events or whatever, you know, maybe, you know, and you're like, well, this is more important to me. I don't want to be vaccinated, and I'm not gonna, it scares me. I've looked at a lot of information that I definitely don't want that. And so I'm not gonna, I'll have to learn to live my life, but without those things that I used to think were so important. But it's like, we're human beings. Our minds are vast, you know, we can, it's like we've forgotten how to use our imaginations, or to find beauty in the simple things. And I think maybe that was a tiny bit orchestrated over the last, you know, everybody's more glued to their phone, and, you know, just everything's so throwaway, and we forget that there's still, you know, a world around us, and everything that we can, you don't need to pay to go eat. You can learn to prepare nice food for yourself. And I don't know, I probably sound like a big hippie, but I don't know. It's like, I just think maybe if it makes a few people realize, you know, yeah, I used to love doing those things, they're taking that away unless I want to get this jab or whatever. But, you know, look deeper inside and think, you know, what, instead of going, well, that's it, I've got to do it, just think, well, no, what else can I do? You know, that's, they've built this little bubble that we all think we have to live in to be fulfilled or whatever. And it's just bollocks. It's like, there's a whole world outside of that bubble that they've made for us or whatever. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, that was definitely one of my points as we got past the 2 weeks, and, you know, it was dragging on a little bit. That was one of my big sort of points where I'd fall out with people, is being like, as someone who considers myself, you know, at least slightly more on the extrovert scale, I know a lot of introverts, and they would be like, what's wrong? What's the issue?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, what are you talking about? This is affecting me way more than it's affecting you. But your use of language in terms of creating a bubble is true as well. because like you said, you can find inner enjoyment, inner peace. That's great. I mean, I'm not completely extroverted, I can't find that, but when it comes to making and keeping relationships, there are certain and this again, this is not me endorsing anything, I'm just saying how things are. Like society expects you to be able to do certain things. For example, like if you want to go on a date, you know, where do you go? Like, I mean, yes, maybe sometimes people do go on walks, for example, but
what's wrong with that? Like,
yeah, exactly, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's, you know, there's an expectation of a certain thing, like, I don't know, going for a drink or going to a restaurant, and then all of a sudden you have to divulge that you're part of the bad subgroup that's, you know, you're the reason why this is carrying on, for example.
Well, you said expectation, you used the word expectation. Where is this expectation, where is it coming from?
It comes from, like you said, it comes from people being brainwashed to think there's an expectation, or there is a society constructed around us, and we learn these expectations as well. Maybe there's some that, you know, are naturally occurring, or whatever that means, but there is, and I think what it does is it can very potentially, I think, make you an outcast. Again, like you said, maybe that's not a bad thing, but yeah, these are all kind of, you know, issues to think about, because they are, you know, it gets very personal very quick. Like I said, you exclude yourself from a large portion of the dating pool, for example. And for a lot of people, that's a very important aspect of their life, is being able to find a partner eventually.
Well, I suppose I mean, yeah, I hear you. I mean, I guess I'm just so, it also has to do, like you said, with your personality. Like, I'm a very, I won't compromise what I, you know, I will compromise in relationships and things like that, you know, on a reasonable level. But if it's something, so, I mean, don't you think it's wrong that you're having to consider having an injection of something that you don't necessarily want in order to find love? I mean, do you think that that's true? Or do you think, you know, I mean, I might be, do you think that's a true statement, that like, that's what you have to do, or there's nothing like?
No, again, this is definitely getting into like the worries in someone's head, right? But yeah, go back to the original issue. My issue with the vaccination thing is not necessarily getting the jab, it's the moral implications of that, and it's what that's going to be used for in society. As me personally, we can get into this, but I don't think that it's particularly interesting. Like,
yeah, no, it's okay.
I was okay with getting vaccinated. I didn't have a big issue with it. It was more, you know, like, this is going to affect other people in society, and I'm complicit with that. That's the issue.
What do you mean when you say that, affect other people in society? Like, because
I'm essentially voting with my feet in a way to say that I'm okay with this being an obligation as part of society. Because like I said,
but you're not okay with it being an obligation.
No, 100% no. This is where we find solidarity. And actually, this is a really interesting that happened a couple of days ago, is in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, they changed the definition of anti-vaxxer.
Yes.
Not the people who opposes the use of vaccines, but also anyone who opposes mandating vaccines. So we have some solidarity, at least.
Yeah, oh, of course. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, but it's like,
even under their fucked up, like, changing the definition of words.
The crazy thing is it's not even mandatory yet. But so many people have just like, well, it's inevitable. And that just makes me go, you know, because, I mean, I don't know. And I guess that's maybe what you're saying is like, yeah. I mean, but it's not mandatory yet. I mean, but I know what Boris has been saying today, like he's talking about, you know, that's what I mean. People are going to be on different sides of the fence as to whether it should never, the question shouldn't even have to be in your mind that like, you won't be able to go on a date or see your, you know, I mean, it shouldn't even have come to this, but here we are. And it's like, that's what's wrong, is that people are really feeling like they're never going to be able to live a normal life unless they do this. And that's that's just total coercion, and it's intentional. But I can tell that, my question is always like, why do they want everyone to have it so badly? But that's a whole nother can of worms. Yeah.
Right. So
I don't know.
That's a good can of worms to get into, actually, because do you think, because I think the natural thing to assume, and this is something you can verify, is in terms of who's been putting money into the media, who've obviously been really, like, there's been no pushback from anything even vaguely mainstream on this. Is it, because I've always suspected it's just like a money-making thing for a lot of sort of movers and shakers who, there's the obvious names, right? But there's people who have their fingers in a lot of pies in terms of government and contracts and the news media. That's what I've always suspected. I've always suspected it's to make money. And that's kind of proven in a way, because it's really shifted that upper echelon of who's like where in the rankings right now. But what do you think that's true, or do you think there's more to the
I think that's a really best case scenario, is that it's only a money making racket, and I've thought, oh man, if that's it, it'll blow over after a bit, whatever. The real reason, because get your tinfoil hat, whatever. The real reason, and I honestly think that they, the end goal is to get us, they're always about track and trace, this app or whatever. I honestly think that they want to make like impossible to move about or do anything without being vaccinated, which is why they had to sell it to everyone. And they had to frighten the life out of everyone to get everyone on board with this. And then I think, they're doing it. They know that if they just said, hey guys, we're going to like make you have to check in everywhere you go, and everyone would be like, no, we're not doing that. So, they've, I think, been planning this for a long time. And I think they've got, look at, is it Sage or whoever they've got? It's all like psychologists and stuff, and not like medical people. It's like they're trying to figure out what society's next move is, because they can't do it without us, but they are doing a very good job of getting people on board with coercion and stuff. But I think my thought is that eventually they want to get us all, if they make everything difficult to move about without vaccination, people are going to be like, it's a pain having to carry this card everywhere or whatever. I just want this little app on my phone, and I can, it's convenient, whatever. So they've sold this. I might be a conspiracy nutter in your opinion, but it makes sense to me that this is kind of where it's headed, that there's something that we have to be able to show everywhere we go, which is quickly becoming vaccination status. So people are going to be sold on the convenience of having it, I just think, and what to do with, like, they don't want people to use cash as much. And I think they just want us in a nice little, they've got more control over us if everything's digital. And you can look as far into that as you like, why they would be doing that or what the end goal is. But to me, it makes a lot of, and also like the demolition of cash usage was like, oh, COVID, we can't take cash because germs, and all these little things. I thought it kind of fits together. I could be totally wrong, but they're doing it for some reason. And I just think that, the virus, it's I got to be careful, because I don't want to offend your people, but like there's like I just feel like they're working on a social credit system, like all the furlough, and they're getting people used to getting money and being dependent on the government, and just another way, if you want your benefits, got to be vaccinated. And I just think it's all just, they're just doing little pop-up things here and there, but I think it all ties together, that eventually that's what I think. What do I know though? It's like, what do you think?
No, I think that's just as good as a theory. Like, there's just as much motivation in that as there is in, making money. Like, because from that comes something that's even more valuable than money, and that's power. And the thing is, right, I just remember, I don't remember how long it was before the fateful March of 2020. But I remember, seeing everyone, people would see China's planning this social credit system and this sort of thing, and us thinking, God, I'm glad I don't live there, that sort of thing, Again, and just thinking we're so much better. And this is, I don't know, maybe this is a bit esoteric, but I think there's an undercurrent of this in the West, and we thought we were kind of above it, because there's a philosopher called Jeremy Bentham, and he's got this idea called the Panopticon. Have you ever heard of it?
What? The
Panopticon. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's like it was like a prison cell system he designed, so that there was a tower in the middle and a bunch of cells around, so that one person could watch like hundreds of people. That's kind of evolved into the weird sort of American jail cells that you get that are side by side, and there's someone walking along up and down, right?
Yeah.
Increasing the surveillance state, and that leads into later on with the workhouses and those sorts of things. Maybe we took a break from all that because we saw how bad authoritarianism was in the 20th century. But like you said, overnight, if I don't think anyone would have been happy with what you've said in terms of, we're going to have a digital system. So that's stuff you can't fudge, basically. People are going to scan you into everywhere you go, and they're going to know exactly where you were at what time. I don't think anyone, even the worst sort of, if you've got nothing to hide sort of people, would be okay with that before. I don't know what mind games have been played here, but it's and like you said, it's one step away from something, being implanted, which is not inherently wrong in itself. But once it becomes part of you as a person, and even if it's just, cards, it's like if you ever lost your wallet or your purse, right? You suddenly realize how lost you are, without the digital cards that you get money with. Just imagine if that was your whole life, not just money, everything else, access to things online or whatever, was all part of you. And you're just unpersoned like that.
Yep.
And we loads of people would say, oh, you're thinking this is never going to happen. But these are the same people who told me that vaccine passports were going to happen a year ago. These were the same people that told me that, emotionally blackmailed me into getting 2 shots and saying that'll be it. It was going to be great. You're going to go back to normal after this. It's really strange.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good theory as well. I don't think that's a nutter theory, really. If you think about it and you've got the perspective on it, and you're not just going to have that knee-jerk reaction that anything mainstream is telling you to have.
Yeah, I take everything with a grain of salt now. And it's I think some people are still struggling with the concept. I mean, I came from someone, like I said, in 2020 spring, I totally trusted Boris is looking out for us. Good job, Boris. Oh, and then he got COVID, and it was like, oh, hope he pulls through. And, and I went from that to I don't listen to anything they say. I don't trust them. I think they're up to something, and I think some people are still, they can't get their head around the fact that the government might be up to something, but luckily I think more people are starting to at least ask questions. I mean, I used to have a Facebook, and when I first started getting a little bit, something's weird about all this, I'm starting to think something's strange. Because I guess lockdown afforded a lot of people the opportunity to dig into stuff, because it started innocently enough. I wanted to know how many cases are in my area or whatever. And then I was still on Twitter, because I was already on Twitter, just people get talking and everything. And then this one guy just went and filmed a hospital at the height of, spring 2020, and went and filmed a hospital live, and it was totally empty. And I was like, hang on a minute, because, you're locked at home. You think, oh my God, hospitals are going to be rammed, people are dying, all this.
I don't know if it's the same one, but for me, it was this is where the optics were made really clear to me. It's the Nightingale hospitals, the big ones that were set up in the big stuff that weren't hardly used. And God no, I don't know how much they cost, but it was obviously a huge like investment. And again, it's giving the impression that the government's going to do something to help you. And then we fast forward, we have a summer of a slight relief, and then all of a sudden we're back in winter, and there's been no preparation for this supposed plague, and things are bad again. Like it's just
there's so many things that don't add up for real. And I think the Nightingale hospitals like alarmed people. They're like, oh my goodness, there's so many patients that there's going to be a necessity for this overflow, but they were never very busy. They tore them down. But I think the one in Birmingham saw like 40 something patients, and then it just went away. So it's like, but I think so many people, I don't know, less and less, but a lot of people are just glued to the TV, and whatever it says is like, that's what's happening, and that's the rules we got to follow. And Boris said, and they're oblivious to the fact that some people probably think the Nightingales are still up. I mean, they're just ready to do whatever, and from the goodness of their heart, they think they're doing the right thing, and but a lot of things don't add up.
Yeah, and this is especially when it's not just manipulation through the media either. And this is where I think it does come back to what I would argue are those harder forms of totalitarianism. I think the people always get on me about, oh, you're exaggerating if you're comparing this to living in, communist Soviet Union or something. But these are the same techniques that have always been used in those sorts of regimes to control people. And you can argue it's softer, but it's showing that the current's going in one direction. Like we spoke about the dictionary change, like there's controller of language, right? That's, there's, control of the media. You've got all the media saying exactly the same things with very minor variants. There's no pushback from anything mainstream. And also they are deliberately targeting any like non-mainstream thing that speaks out in any way. And then the third one, which is the one which really gets me, and this is the one that you see particularly in the Soviet Union and in Nazi Germany, is to turn families on each other. Because that's the last unit that keeps you from being completely controlled by the state, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's a big one. Because again, we've spoken about how I've been manipulated in that way.
Yeah.
And again, it's not, I'm not like blaming my family for this, it's like, I feel like it's from elsewhere. And it's
from the government they've done such a psychological, that's what I was saying. They've had like years to prepare for this. So they have psychologically manipulated everyone. Well, not everyone, but whatever, to believe that this is, if you don't do this, you're not for the good of others, or, they've twisted it in such a way that it, I mean, it is, you said to me when I asked you, why, you said, I wanted to see my it's for your reasons were like, for the good of others, and it's like, they have made people feel like, that you're selfish if you don't want to take this, and you're, it's so manipulative and so deep that, I mean, that's how they're, that it's appealing. That's like all the virtue signaling. And you asked at the beginning what mask symbolizes, and I think they've made people feel virtuous for going along with the program, whatever the narrative is, and that's just another way that they've manipulated everyone and gained the compliance, is how they're getting control of society.
Yeah, it's really weird how it's become good to slightly inconvenience your like airwaves, and then you get like a total moral superiority. Because I feel like, with some respiratory diseases, there are some like serious masks that could actually be effective. But the blue ones aren't even designed to do that in hospitals, right? Like they're
exactly
not designed to do. And it's just like, it's just like, the looks you'll get, or the conversations or attacks you'll get from just random people in public. Like I said, it's like a public shaming in an authoritarian state or something. I think one of the ones that really got me is, I think a couple took their masks off to kiss each other goodbye on the train once, and one of them left, and there was like 3 or 4 people like shaking their heads and tutting in the carriage. Like, it's just, yeah, again, I don't know where this is going, to be honest, but
no, again, it's like people, it's like this fear that most people have of coming out of that bubble. It's like, this is what's been created for us. Don't do anything to deviate from that. Stay in the bubble. You know, it's really disheartening that people have been so taken in. And yeah, I have to be careful, because it does make me really mad that people think they have the right. I mean, and you said earlier that, I think people do have a fear of being an outcast, or not, a lot of people don't want to wear a mask or whatever. They're afraid of people doing what you say, stepping out of line or whatever. So you even have members of society who are, helping along this movement towards controlling everyone. And people think it's their business what medical procedure you've had, if you've been vaccinated, if you're what, it's just bizarre. I've never minded being an outcast, and it doesn't bother me if someone, I don't know, but I know it's nerve-wracking. That's one of the reasons I felt like I wanted to leave. I just wanted to go buy something from the shop or whatever, and you do think, I'm not going to wear a mask, and I'm probably going to get looks or whatever, but you just have to sort of steel yourself against these things and just hold tight to what you value and what's important to you. And I don't know.
Yeah, I've never in my life been called nice, and I've always been really skeptical of nice people, because they tend not to have any like convictions. Because if you have a conviction, you're going to butt heads with someone at some point, right? And it's so weird, because you get tugged in so many different directions. Because this was a thing before COVID with all sorts of like fashions, whether they're consumerist or political or whatever. But it's you get that bizarre one now, at least I've had this, where people are like comparing, oh, what vaccine did you get, and what vaccine did you get, right? It's like, what trainers have you got? It's like, oh, he's got Moderna. Have you seen his Modernas? They look so cool.
Horrible. It's horrible. I despair. I really do.
Let's not despair. I don't know. I think I like to think there's some hope.
There's always hope.
Yeah, even if it's slim. But
what are we hoping for? Are we just like, this all is just going to go away, or
what are we hoping
what?
For?
We'll never be able to go back to where we were. Never. That's over.
No.
I mean, I'm not saying that everything's just going to suck from here on out. There's always beauty in life, and but but I suppose that's the way it goes throughout history. Is that things evolve, things change, things are never yesterday is never going to be the same as today. It's like I never thought I'd see anything like this in my lifetime, so it's pretty mind-blowing. Whatever side of the fence you're on. And luckily, I think, like you were saying earlier, the part where we can find solidarity is that even whether vaccinated or not, people don't want to be forced to do things. It's not, so I guess what I'm hoping for is, well, I can't probably say what I'm really hoping for, or how we could get there. But, we're free. We should be free. We're human beings. We don't need a government telling us we have to put this in our body. I mean, people have completely forgotten that the government work for us. We pay their wages. They shouldn't be mandating what we put in our body, when we can leave our house, who we can spend Christmas with, whether we can have Christmas at all. All these things are just slowly, and like, yeah, you said in the summer they pull back a bit, because they can't just go, right, we're doing this now, like with the social credit. You know, they have to lure up and
like the bully who stops hitting you for a second to trick you. No, yeah, it's weird. I think what you said there is really important, because in terms of, you know, people putting things in their body that do harms, because, and you said that, like, I'm not saying that things are going to suck from here on out, but I don't think, you know, and hear me out here, I don't think things really suck now. And that's an issue with modernity, right? Is that, you know, we're still pretty like abundant. Like very few people in our society are starving, for example. Like very few people are like genuinely hand to mouth, you know. And this is like, lots of people disagree with you because they'll pick out the one or two examples where it's, you know, that actually is an issue. But, you know, when it comes, especially I think this is really important with COVID in terms of what people are doing with their bodily autonomy. There's been absolutely no discussion, and I really need to compare the death numbers on this, because I think it's really important. And then not just that, but it's also the effects it has on people's lives that aren't killing them, is obesity, smoking, alcohol. For example, the way the flu was handled before. I've heard, again, a really intelligent person tell me that, oh, but with flu, we did everything we could. But that's not true at all. We didn't do everything we could. We didn't stay inside our houses for 2 years or whatever. And this is just not, that's just not a conversation that's being had. And again, there's so much fudging with these numbers, because with the cases, with the cases, it's a case. It doesn't, I could test positive tomorrow and that's a case, right? But when it comes to the deaths weren't counted correctly, and this, I don't know what the reasoning for that was from the beginning. Like that, again, that's another one that I'm feeling like this has been done deliberately. But yeah, those things that, you know, and still aren't talked about, because we do have massive problems with all those sorts of intoxicants that we put in ourselves freely, as opposed to, you know, something that we might catch by accident.
The government doesn't care about, you know, stopping us doing those things. It's
I'll tell you exactly why that is. Because those things are taxed.
Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. But it's what were you saying earlier? There was something you made me think, like it's gone. But it is weird how the numbers, the fudging and all this, you know, I mean, and how no one's talking about it. And the people who do try and talk about it in the little, you know, it will never be on the mainstream, you know, that there's anything to question. It's just the one narrative. But even if people try and discuss it on Twitter or anything, they just get evaporated. They just, you know, you're not allowed to talk about these things. Like, why? You're not allowed to question why, you know, that you're not allowed to point out that something doesn't make sense, or, you know, and if, you know, people have signed petitions, they comment on the politicians' Twitter and they never get an answer. It's like,
I'll pull it.
Well, how do we reach them, you know, unless we go with pitchforks and like, hello, we've got some questions. I don't know. It's like,
I've got, and I know you've kind of taken part in what you've thought was good, but, and I think, you know, rallies can serve a purpose, for example. But again, I think it's better, like you said, if you have a bit of fear stricken into the heart of the person you're trying to target. But yeah, petitions are just. But I mean, I suppose like you feel that they're just going into an abyss, and they're never, you know, you'd get so many signatures, and then the government would respond, and it was just like nauseating. It was just more. Petitions are a psyop as well in that way, because again, this is just another thing to do with social media, kind of social theory, but you sign a petition, you literally just put your email in or whatever, and you feel like you've done something. Then you don't have to do anything else, right? You've done your bit.
Well, I think the thing that I think they were inspiring, because at a time when everyone's locked in their house and are just talking, you don't know how many others are out there who feel like you do. And I used to find it quite exciting to see, you know, crap, look how many people, you know, we're not alone. There's a lot of people who oppose these things. And so I think it doesn't serve the purpose it's intended, like to reach the government, and that like they don't give a crap. But like it was really inspiring to see some momentum to see there's that many people, that's what for me they served. I know it's clearly obvious they're not going to make a difference, but it's still, but I think they have their own, it's like protests are the same thing. They don't really, they bring people together. You can meet people and you can see with your eyes how, look at all the global protests nowadays. They're enormous. And surely, that's got to be making the, part of, it's got to be making the people behind all of this. I also believe they're intending to form a sort of one world government. It's obvious with the unanimous slogans across, build back better, like Biden is using that, Boris is using that, all of the Greta is using that, Merkel, everybody, Trudeau, everybody, Macron, they're all using this build back better, like we're all one. And I think they're going for a one world government. So I think that seeing a huge protest, whether it makes an immediate change in that country or, it gives an indication that they can't just impose this on people without some kind of pushback. Mm-hmm. So I think petitions, protests, that's probably the best they're good for, is just saying we're here, we don't agree with this. And, that's, it probably doesn't accomplish much more than that, but that's something.
Yeah, I think I really want to dig more into this with, I don't know, maybe I'll get someone to talk to or write an essay or something, but it's just the use of language when it comes to like conspiracy theory, the way the phrase New World Order like immediately makes people roll their eyes and they just completely think you're a certain type of person. And
I used to be one of those people like 2 years ago, laughing at those people. And now I'm like, hang on, this makes sense.
But this is a thing, like Bush actually said that. He said that phrase. Like, there's a video of it. You can literally watch it.
There's a montage of lots of them saying it. It's
the Build Back Better thing is really sus to me. Like, that's so weird. But I think the problem we make when we try and talk about these things is we assume there's a central point of control. Like I again, there's these Bilderberg meetings and that sort of things. I just think power, especially when it comes to elites, and I think it's been this way through pretty much all of history when there's been some sort of cohesion in a group, whether that's Europe or parts of Asia and that sort of thing, it's way more decentralized than we might assume it is. There's definitely something pernicious about the power structure, but I think it's more decentralized. I don't think Angela Merkel's the one calling the shots for everyone, that sort of thing. I don't think it's like a specific thing. I think that's what makes it actually more dangerous, because it also like alleviates accountability from these people. And I'm not, again, it's not like individuals either. It's across, for example, like you said, there are like massive protests now that are getting really quite violent. And that's another thing that's making me think this is going in the direction of people being pinned down and like having a jab in their arm as well. Because you just, you see videos of old ladies and old men who've forgotten their vaccine pass getting accosted by like German police officers, and Australia, people just getting crazy like scuffles. But again, when it comes to the news media, it is like, you can see the difference when it was a very clearly like orchestrated event for the media before this, for environmentalism, for example. And it's all like, the golden children, and it's all, look at what these kids spontaneously did by themselves, which is not what happened. And then the narrative's just completely changed, and certain groups are being ignored for reasons. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but I think it's more decentralized than we might assume. But I do like the fact that a lot of the environmentalism stuff's gone completely quiet now, and but I don't like seeing masks all over the floor like bits of bubblegum, to be honest with you. So,
well, I just like, I don't know, I find it's never been such a time when all of the, like, for example, all right, there's this virus, right? It's everywhere. It should be, but I'm in Texas, right? Nobody's dropping dead. Nobody's wearing masks. Biden keeps trying to make these mandates, and certain states are just shooting them down. so this is the same thing, right, everywhere. And Boris is putting all of this, like putting all of these restrictions on everyone, whereas we're pretty much just getting on with life. But I find, I forgot totally where I was going with this too, but I mean, I was trying to, I would guess in a weird way, I'm sort of contradicting my point, but it seems like when has there ever been a time when so many countries were all on board, with this same, like, oh, there's a global pandemic. And if places like that is justifying all of these restrictions and everyone has to have this vaccination. But if it's the same, I'm going to lose my train of thought. I can tell I'm just going to like blow this out of the water. But like, there's never been a time when everybody was all the countries were sort of all on the same page. And if it wasn't for places like Texas or Florida or Sweden for a while, although they seem to have done a U-turn, but it's like these little places are like thorns in the side of everything being completely, I just find it odd, that, and I don't know if you've ever heard of like the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Have you ever like looked into them at all, or?
Not deeply, but I'm aware of what it is, right?
Because I think, I think if people, I mean, I don't know, but they seem to be, they're a group of global business leaders, and they have their annual meetings with global leaders, and they have their summits and everything.
Well, they don't bother wearing masks as well.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like they're the ones who sort of started that Build Back Better thing. And I don't think it's one country, like you said, like Angela Merkel or whatever, calling the shots. But I think if I could guess, being a conspiracy theorist, I think that organization is probably because they're all meeting with these leaders, and they have meetings which no one's allowed to know what goes on in them, and not like crazy, I don't know, like they have an agenda and they're talking about how the world is going to proceed. But I think I think if there is a central hub of where these kind of things originate, it's something to do with them. But I don't know, that's probably take another hour to get into all that, but I think it is.
Explain so much to me. I'm not. It sounds like
no, it's
okay. About this.
I don't know. I'm a tinfoil hatter, I guess. I wasn't, but it's like too many things not adding up. So I just want to understand it, and the more I dig, the more I find. I'll just put it that way. But who knows? Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's been the biggest tug on my conscience in my entire life, this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And that's, for me, as someone who's interested in morality, philosophy, ethics, that's the thing that really got to me. I should probably be more educated on what's actually going on behind the scenes. But
well, no, there's so much, so
yeah, right.
And like you said, it's like, I think part of the, how I was saying they've been planning this for decades or whatever, part of it is to discredit people who, the term conspiracy theorist is just, and like you were saying, New World Order and stuff, people are programmed to already laugh and dismiss, it's like you start talking, I've got some questions about all this, and they're like, you're a flat earther. It's like, what? Like, I wasn't even talking about flat earth, but like, it's just lumped together, like, oh, you're one of those weird people who like questions things, and and so people just won't even entertain opening their mind to even question some people, but yeah, and I think there's definitely something dodgy going on in a central way.
Yeah, I don't know as much about as you, obviously, but I would definitely agree with you there. But again, I'm glad we've kind of found some solidarity here. Where does the pseudonym come from?
The what?
The whole Fraulein Chucknorris thing. What's that?
Oh God, I don't
random,
even,
like handle, or is it actually?
I cannot even remember where that came from. And I was yeah, Fraulein I just put on there when about a year ago, when I see, I don't want to offend anyone, but it just started to feel a bit, I don't know, in England felt a bit oppressed and a bit of a little, I don't know. It was just, I can't put it into words, but it was like, yeah. I have to be careful what I say. But yeah, no, it's just nonsense, really. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I think that whole I've kind of got my reasons for not wanting to be like anonymous or pseudo anonymous, but I think that side of Twitter is kind of the most interesting, because it's definitely, whether it's always right, I don't know, but it's definitely the edgiest part.
I don't know. I think because sometimes I think if more people, because of all the backlash you get if you do question things or you think a little different than other, it's like people don't want to lose their job or whatever. So it's like, I think sometimes it's nice to just be anonymous. You can say what, it took me a while to decide if I'd even show my face, but I'm like, if someone runs across this and they recognize me, they're already going to know me, so it's fine. But I don't know, it's like, I think anonymity gives people, if you're not being a total jerk, it like gives you a bit of courage to speak more freely than maybe you would if or ponder things a bit more.
Yeah.
I've or if someone from your work might look you up and go, oh, I didn't know she thought all this crap, and it spills into your real life. It's nice to be able to have a place to really explore what's going on in the world with like-minded people without that added pressure of like people, you can reveal yourself to people in your real life when you're ready. And it's like, if they come looking for you and they find all this stuff that you might not be ready to address with them in real life, So that's why I think anonymity is a good thing.
Yeah, it's got its roots in like a lot of political and like religious dissidents a long time ago with the printing press and all this sort of stuff. But it's really taken off in the digital age. And I think all these things in their own way, like you said, people are jerks about it or whatever, or do mislead people with anonymity as well. But I think it's ultimately a servant to truth. And it's those sorts of truths that come out that they challenge what we, like you said, what we assume and don't question. And the truth can be painful, I think, but sometimes it does need to be said.
Definitely. And the truth is different for different people. So it's like this is why I'm inherently somebody who doesn't really want to offend people or piss people off. But like you said, it's like this whole scenario has been so divisive that, people, I've lost friends that I've had for years, just, I've walked away, they've walked away because we just, and it's, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that either, but it is tough. It's tough, like just truth. That's what we were talking about. It's like, what is even the truth? It's like, I know what I feel in my heart, what I think I know, and but there's so many people walking around with their own truth going on that, and I never want to shatter anyone else as much as I don't want to be shattered, but it's like, yeah, this is this time in our lives where this is all going on. It's just pretty mind-blowing. It's like, I don't know. And do you know another thing? I'm just going way back to earlier in the conversation. I keep going back to this thought though, is like how we cling to this bubble that's been created and what would make a fulfilling life. I just had this really random thought that like, what would people do if they keep talking about this like asteroid that's going to come and like hit the world and like cause all the, it's just barely going to miss us. But like sometimes things happen in life that force us to come out of the bubble. And it's like, you can either be forced to like live in that construct that's being built for us by the media and the government or whatever, and you can just accept that that's the rules you have to, that's the world you've got to live in if you want to be part of society. But what happens when like, I hope I say this as well as it's happening in my head, but I can't, like say some huge natural disaster happens, people will be forced to realize all the things they never needed in the first place. Like, do you get where I'm going with this?
No, I understand at all completely. I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, it's like, I guess the first time I sort of maybe not the first time, I don't know, just an example, like when that big tsunami hit, and like I was watching all these videos on YouTube in Japan of like just people going about their lives, and all of a sudden, like this huge, it's horrible, you know. I was watching people just running for their lives, and you just thought, oh my God, like one day they're just living a life. They think, you know, restaurants, bars, doing this, you know, not a care in the world. And then something comes that obliterates it. So like something like that could happen on any given day, and you'd be forced to realize through that the bubble that they've created, that means you're fulfilled, is so like fragile anyway, just by the nature of existence. But it's like people cling to it because that's what they, you know. So I guess in a way, why it's not like, if you have to live outside of that construct to be true to yourself, I guess sometimes, you know, that could be obliterated anyway, out through no fault of your own, like through no, and then you'd be forced to realize like, oh, I don't have those things anymore, but life still has value. But I think some people have forgotten that life still has value outside of that. So I just wanted to say that, because I don't know if it makes any sense to you where I was going with that.
No, it completely tracks. I think it really comes back to talking about nice people who aren't going to be convicted or hardy enough for the things that might happen in the near future. I don't know. And also, you know, if you don't make it, even if what I suspect about what happens when you die is true, I almost kind of want to make it. I almost want, this is just so like a stupid human thing to think, right? But I want to think my life was worth living and I wasn't a completely bad person.
You were completely what?
Completely bad person, you know.
Oh.
You want to be happy.
Well, who decides that? Who decides that then?
I don't know. Again, this gets into a metaphysical conversation.
Sorry, I just can't help it. I'll be like drilling in there. No, but I think, you know, do you believe that you define yourself, or, you know, not talking about you personally, but a person? Do you believe that a person defines themselves, or it's you're judged at the end on how? I don't know. I'm just curious, like from a philosophical standpoint, not from a personal standpoint.
Yeah, I think just because of the way we're social animals, I think that most of what we are, at least to the world, whatever that means, right, is defined by, you know, a combination of the inclinations and impressions of other people. But besides that, I do believe in conscience. And again, this comes back to what you were saying about truth as well, because I don't think everyone's conscience are like kind of oriented in the same way, right? Something that might make me like lay awake at night might not bother someone else. And I think, again, that's just like inclination. But I do believe in a monologue and in a conscience. I think that's a thing. And, you know, although you might have all these irrational feelings about, oh, what happens if I die and I'm not happy with what I did? I feel like that's it's almost like your compass in a way. Again, this comes back to what you were saying about being like true to what you believe, or true to yourself, whatever like cliche means, right? But I do believe in an inner conscience.
It's true. You get a feeling, don't you? Like, this isn't, I've done something not, or I've done something that, I don't know, but who invents that? It's like, I don't know. Did that evolve as part of you from the moment you were born? Was like, I always wonder like where instinct comes from. Like, do you learn that? Are you born with that? Did we live before and we, you know, where does that come from?
Right.
And like some people seem like that word malleable. Some people feel, you know, I think they are influenced by others, how others perceive them, or some people more than others. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of people and beliefs and feelings and intuitions and consciences and everything. So it's, and who's right and who's wrong. And I don't know, that's what makes this whole, if you step away, this whole last couple of years really interesting, because it's just shown what a variety of people we've got on this planet.
You know, I think would be a really good ending to all of this was if, you know, all of a sudden all the screens get hijacked and it's the World Economic Forum and they're just there to say, this has been a big social experiment. Thanks for taking part.
That'd be great. Good job, guys. It's all over. Go on.
Yeah, but if you like
on.
unfriended all your family and stuff, you'd feel a bit shit.
Well, you know, you learn things about people that, you know, I don't have any regrets. Well, maybe a couple, but yeah, that's a pretty strong statement. No regrets. I don't know.
No regrets.
But I think it's taught us, yeah, it's definitely tested boundaries of relationships. That there's a lot of things for me. I just realized I took a lot of things for granted, and just being able to go about business, just being able to feel free is just so strange to feel like that's, you know, it feels like that's gone or something. It's weird.
Yeah.
But hopefully not forever.
Hopefully. Well, I think this has been a really good conversation. This isn't exactly a lighthearted question, but I think it's, you know, a bit of a palate cleanser and sort of, you know, takes us out of the seriousness. Is that if you're on death row, what would your final meal be?
Oh yeah, I know this is one that you ask all of your people.
Don't ask me how I came up with it.
No, it's interesting because I really thought about this for a while because I knew it was coming. So I was like, oh, what would I have? And yeah, like I stopped eating meat about 5.5 years ago, just like as a weird experiment, because I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And so I was like, all right, I don't think I can, but I'll give it a go. And then I kept with it. Now it's been about 5.5 years. So I was thinking, gosh, well, I used to love eating meat. Oh man, coming back to Texas, like everyone's eating all this gorgeous steak and fajitas. And I'm just like, what am I doing, man? But I'm really stubborn. So I'm like, no, I'm sticking to this. I've done it this long. So I was thinking, right, for my last meal, would I just go, fuck it, I'm dying anyway. So I might, but I was like, no. So I was thinking, what like vegetarian options for last meal? What would I do? And I used to think there's this one restaurant that I used to go to when I used to live in California for a little while. And it was before I was vegetarian, but it was called Long Life Veggie House. And they used to have this one meal and it was called, like some kind of black mushroom tofu or shit. It just sounds really crap, but it was absolutely delicious. So I'm like, I can't get that anymore. So I think I'd probably just have one of those.
Nice.
There you go.
That's a good answer. Yeah, I'm always surprised about the answers I get from people because there's always a backstory to what the
food, man, is an important part of our life.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for your time.
I feel like I really depressed you and like put you in a weird mental state.
No, this is how I always am.
Okay, you're all right over there.